This episode is brought to you by Nespresso. Gift magical mornings with Nespresso Virtuo Pop. Compact and stylish, Virtuo Pop is made to meet every morning coffee craving. From espresso to coffee, hot or iced, at the click of a button. And celebrate the season with Nespresso's limited edition coffee flavors. Sweet almond and hibiscus, cinnamon and candied tamarind, and festive double espresso. Magic in the making. Shop the holiday gift collection exclusively at Nespresso.com.
Introducing Oakley Meta Vanguard, the new performance AI glasses designed for athletes. With hands-free capture on an action-ready ultra-wide camera, powerful open-ear speakers, and built-in Meta AI that syncs with your Garmin devices for real-time insights while you train. Take your performance to the next level with Oakley Meta Vanguard. Athletic intelligence is here. Learn more on meta.com.
Buckeye Talk is about to begin. Hey, 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 come on in.
Welcome back to Buckeye Talk. I'm Stephen Means, and this is a Friday bonus pod. Hopefully you had a great Thanksgiving. We did our preview pod on the live show on YouTube Wednesday, which was also in your feed on Thursday morning. I hope you enjoyed that. I thought it was a great conversation seeing myself, Stefan, and Andrew. This, however, is a rants pod. We spent the week previewing Michigan, talking Michigan. We talked with Jimmy Watkins, our rivalry reporter, who was up in Ann Arbor on Monday and talked with Sharon Moore and a group of players, and we got the vibes off of that. We talked with Ryan Day on Tuesday and got the vibes off of that. We've had our live show where we deep dove into some X's and O's, into some big picture stuff. And now it's time for the thing that matters most when you're talking about rivalry games, and that's the feelings. But not the feelings of the players, not the feelings of the coaches, not even the feelings of the media, the feelings of the fans. Because that's what matters most here. Get the text, 614-350-3315, 2-week free trial. $3.99 after that. This is a great time to get it. It gets you through the Michigan game, and if Ohio State snaps its 4-game losing streak against Michigan, it'll get you through the Big Ten championship game as well, which is next week, where it's a bunch of different scenarios of who they could play, but they got to get through Michigan first before we can start talking about any of this other stuff. Again, this is a rants pod. I called out for rants on Sunday, and I've just been letting them stew and bake throughout the week. I got a good list of stuff. I always try to categorize them for the sake of some structure on an actual podcast, because I also just don't want to have to be repeating myself a bunch. Because listen, there's only been so many topics to rant about, right? Though there are sometimes some kind of other, but not necessarily during a rivalry week. So here's how I categorized this group of rants. I have the shift, and by shift, I just mean the shift in mindset, right? This game has meant everything for so long, literally 100 plus years. This game has meant everything. And it still means everything. But the tangible pros and cons of it obviously have changed with the expansion of first to 14 playoff. We saw that in 2022 when Ohio State was able to backdoor in, even though it lost to Michigan and did not go to the Big Ten championship game. And then obviously last year with the 12-team playoff, it's changed forever, right? It doesn't take a perfect scenario for Ohio State to still be playing for a national championship if it loses to Michigan. It just needs to have a playoff resume, which is what it had last year, on its way to losing to Michigan to close out the regular season, not playing in the Big Ten championship game, but still getting into the college football playoff, having a home game, and running off 4 straight to win a national title. So that idea, that concept of how would you feel as a fan if Ohio State ever won a national title, but in the same year lost to Michigan, that is no longer just a hypothetical. It is now true in the world we are living in. And I think you're starting to see some people shift towards prioritizing what matters most in a given year. It doesn't mean that the rivalry matters less. It just means that people maybe are shifting and understanding that the two things are not tied anymore, right? You don't have to go through Michigan to get the other one anymore. The next category is Ryan Day, and I think that's pretty self-explanatory. And it's a lot of different rants on Ryan Day all over the place. And I actually have my own rant on Ryan Day that I'll probably share when we get to that one. I have another category called tired. And it's just fans wanting who are just tired of a lot of different things. A lot of different things. All Ohio State, Michigan related, by the way. All these are going to be Ohio State, Michigan related. Stressed, which is understandable. I think it's funny to watch the emotions of this week go into it, right? You start off on this high, you kind of come down for a little bit, you go through Thanksgiving and you spend that time with your family, and then you kind of lock in on what is coming towards you on Saturday. And that can show itself in a lot of different emotions, and I know one of them is stressed. I have another category called blow them out, which I'm sure most of you can put two and two together what that is. And then just a couple of them at the end that I thought were pretty interesting that I think belong here because of the world we now live in, right? And some things that Ohio State, they don't need Michigan to win a national title, but they do need Michigan to have some bigger picture conversations that I think we want and are curious about whether or not we're going to be able to have about this Ohio State football team when the season ends. So we're going to start in the shift category, and we're going to start with Brian from Snoqualmie, Washington. Brian, I hope I said that correctly. I practiced it for like an hour and a half before I said it. I got home from Thanksgiving with my family, and I practiced Snoqualmie for literally 90 minutes. So if I got that correctly, please text me. And if I didn't get it correctly, please text me. It's Snoqualmie from the 425. That's Brian. This game broke me last year. The world is a hard and cruel place, and football is supposed to be relief from the harsh realities of human existence. The Buckeyes on Saturdays in the fall have always had a tradition that grounds me and binds me to family and friends no matter what is going on in the world. I can't fully express how important the Buckeyes have become to me in my life. But that fourth loss last year happening around a particular moment in time when so much in the world seemed dark and out of control, coupled with the way the Buckeyes lost, put me in a very dark place. For 2 weeks after the game, I started wondering if I cared too much. I started questioning whether my happiness was too dependent on the results of a game played by 19 to 22-year-olds and what that ultimately said about me. I decided to watch the playoffs with no expectations and to try as hard as I could to truly embrace the fact that fans have the privilege to simply find joy in the good parts of the game and dismiss the bad. Before the Tennessee game, I made it a point to simply root for the team and be grateful for the fact that I am privileged enough to witness and be a part of it all, no matter the final score. We all know what happened from there. It's a lesson that I hope Buckeye fans remember going into this year's version of the game. There is a ton riding on this game, but the results won't change the fact that this whole experience is a gift. The hard work the team puts in should be appreciated and celebrated. From the 302, in a bizarre way, I am grateful for Michigan winning 4 straight, even though they cheated to win some of them. Since the arrival of Jim Tressel, there really hasn't been a rivalry, just Ohio State beating Michigan year in and year out, except the Fickle game. I am looking forward to a big Ohio State win in Ann Arbor. Before Michigan winning a few, I would have viewed this game similar to the last couple against Rutgers and UCLA. From the 937, sharing thoughts from talking to my dad about the rivalry that I feel you'd appreciate. It's more than a game cliche, but recently that's ruined the actual game, so I have to wonder if that went too far. So I'm really liking what I'm hearing from Ryan Day, making these things routine. I also didn't live through the 10-year war to have that example of how to conduct the rivalry. But my thoughts, rivalries are fun because they're about more than the X's and O's. But you can't forget how to X and O. And you can't send your coach and his family death threats. And you can't cheat. I want to hate and respect the team up north. And I want them to hate and respect us. And I want to watch good football. The last few years, none of those have all been true at the same time. In other words, Harbaugh was the worst thing for both sides of the best rivalry, and I blame him for everything. That's the spirit, 937. From the 262, I know this is blasphemous as an OSU fan, but I've been thinking a lot about the Michigan rivalry. If it meant winning national titles, I could lose every year to Michigan and just say that who cares about the Wolverines. OSU could lose on purpose to spite them and then win the 12-team playoff while laughing in their face because they are irrelevant. I want OSU to win the game, obviously, but I'm over it and want national titles more. From the 941, and this is based off of what Nick Saban said, so I'll read this after I read what they had to say. I agree with Nick Saban. It's time to get with the times and stop losing our minds over this game. I understand the tradition and everybody loves storylines like this, but it's not the top prize anymore. I'm not saying we shouldn't care, just keep it in perspective. And then finally from the shift, before I kind of react to a lot of those things. From the 267, My dad and I are traveling from the Philadelphia area to the game. We're season ticket holders and figured we'd make the trip this year to the big house for the first time, because if not a win this year, then win. In preparation, I told my friends that I'd have to prepare my dad not to run his mouth. He sheepishly inquired about what we could actually run our mouth about, so I said, my dad won't antagonize, but he will respond. I think it's the fact that Michigan thinks it's even a conversation. You pick any stretch post-1940, Ohio State has a better record. Anyone from the age 9 to 90 has seen OSU win more games. In my lifetime, I was born in 1991, it's not particularly close. In my adult life, it's laughable. Post-World War II, OSU leads. You factor in the 1800s, Michigan has more wins. Michigan basically has one natty since 1948. That 1997 BS doesn't count. We don't care about the cheating stuff. They cheated, but that's not why they won the natty. Lastly, OSU doesn't have down years. Michigan got a mulligan for last year and then again this year because they're the youngest team in the conference. OSU doesn't have that luxury, nor will they ever use it. OSU has lost 3 games in a season twice in 20 years. Shout out to 9-3 Doug from the 2019 season. Steven, you'll remember. Of course I remember that. I'll never allow Doug to live that down. And you guys will never allow Doug to live that down. Come on, man. 9-3 Doug lives forever. And one of those was the Tattoo Gate year. The standard is different. So I want to start with Nick Saban. Because while I think Nick Saban's heart is in the right place, it comes off dismissive and judgmental. And I love that there are more coaches and players in the media in this space. I think they provide a level of value because they played the game and they coached the game. I love the Caleb Downs podcast for what it is. I love Draymond Green's podcast for what it is. I love the Pivot podcast for what it is, right? I mean, Busting with the Boys, all these different podcasts, I love them for what they are because their perspective is one that's very unique to a small subset of people who got an opportunity to play a sport at a certain level, whether that be the college level or making it all the way to the professional level, right? And so I think there's value in that. I think there's value in everybody's space, right? I think there's value in what I do as someone who went to college, got the proper training for this, right? And now I have a job doing. I'm a professional writer. I'm a professional podcaster, which is hilarious to say. But this is what I do for a living to feed my family, right? I love the people who are in the social media space who have, or more on the fan side of things. I think there's a space for everybody to have a voice in this, and that's what makes it so beautiful. What we've created here is everybody has a voice, and nobody's voice is more important than somebody else's. But that last part I said is the most important part of that. We have to remember that nobody's voice, nobody's opinion is more important. Yours might hold more weight depending on the conversation, but it is not more important. And for Nick Saban, here's what he said. I said it last year. These Ohio State fans are psychotic about this. They all need to go see a doctor someplace. I'd rather win the national championship than beat Michigan. That's just me. So here's the deal. That's not a wrong opinion to have. Right? It's not a wrong opinion to think that doing something that only one person gets to do every year is a bigger reward for a year than something that, it's 132 FBS programs. Everybody's got a rival, right? So cut that in half. That's how many teams are winning a rivalry game every single year, right? That you're guaranteed to play your rival every year unless there's a global pandemic that wipes it out. So unless a global pandemic, you're able to do that every single year. You are not guaranteed to reach the national championship game. So I understand if that is your perspective on things. But how dare you make it seem like that's the only perspective to have on things? No one is wrong here. This sport has been built on passion and emotion and living on the edge of both sides of that emotion, whether it be love or hatred. There's no in between. Love and hatred has been where college sports has lived because you are connected in a way that you just can't be with pro sports, right? That's somebody's job, right? Like you grew up with this, whether you grew up, turned 18, went to college, and went to Ohio State or Michigan, or you grew up in Ohio or Michigan, or you just grew up in the Midwest, or you just grew up loving college, regardless of whatever your relationship is to this rivalry, if you've never lived it, you don't get it. So when Nick Saban says that, I don't have a problem with the I'd rather win a national championship than beat Michigan part. I have a problem with him calling Ohio State fans psychotic for doing something they've always done. And that's hate their rival, respect their rival, but hate their rival, want their team to beat their rival. That has long, for 100 years, been the standard. Beat Michigan, win the Big Ten, win a national title. In that order. 12 months ago, that order was no longer a mandate and more of a talking point. So to tell people who have spent their entire lives living by a standard, they are now psychotic because they don't think the way you think, you're lost. You're living in this, it's a I know better than everybody mentality, and you don't know. You were part of this rivalry for 2 years as an assistant. You don't know. You didn't live it. You don't know it. Is there a way to handle it better? Yes, you have to do what works for you, and we'll get into that when we talk about Ryan Day. But for Nick Saban to be so dismissive, for anybody to be so dismissive, and Nick Saban's a legend. He's the greatest college football coach of all time. He knows how to win. That doesn't mean he knows the Ohio State-Michigan rivalry. So it's okay for people who have shifted towards that, which is what some of these people who I just read off, that's what they've done. They've shifted and they've decided, you know what? Last year showed me a different path. The only challenge I would say to that is if Ohio State hadn't shown you a different way last year, would you have gotten there this quickly? And maybe your answer is yes, and then your answer is yes. But I think Ohio State winning a national championship has allowed people to get there quicker. And so people like me aren't going, hey, man, this exists. Hey, man, this exists, right? If Ohio State loses on Saturday, I think there will be significantly less people who will be doom and gloom about what happened as it would have been had they not won a national title last year. Simply because you see what can still happen. And you saw tangible results of that. But to the Saban point, I agree. I think the national championship is maybe a bigger fish to fry. But you're also talking to a fan base who hasn't won this rivalry in 4 years, man. They've been on the losing side for 4 years and actually haven't won it in even more years than that because the game got canceled in 2020. So to make it seem like they're insane for thinking this way, they're not. You're not insane if you still think it's important that Ohio State beats Michigan. You're not insane if you still think that's the most important thing. You're not. Now, be respectful, right? Remember, these are human beings and whatnot. But you're allowed to be upset that your team didn't beat its rival. And there's too many national talking heads who are talking like that's the worst thing in the world to get upset at your college football team for not beating its college football rival. It's insane. Stop trying to tell fans how to be fans. Let them decide for themselves. There's not a wrong side right now. This is new to everybody. It's crazy that Ohio State pulled that off last year. It's crazy. It was awesome to witness. I'm glad I got to document it. It's still new. The other two parts of that first series of rants that I think really stood out to me. First, Brian, talking about how the game broke him last year. I'm pairing that with 937. You and your dad talking about this and feeling like this hasn't necessarily been fun as much, and you want to blame Harbaugh for that, which I respect, man. That's just part of the rivalry. I agree, though. I think this rivalry got too non-football the last 4 years because of a lot of different things, right? Whether it's the Jim Harbaugh born on third base comment after the 2021 win. how this has maybe had an impact on Ryan Day and his family, how this has had an impact on an era of Buckeyes and their families, the Connor Stallions thing, which again, like I think that dude's 15 minutes of fame. He keeps like that guy really knows how to stretch it, because he's just not relevant anymore, and for whatever reason, he keeps popping up in our lives, and it's gotten a little weird, right? I mean, the whole the fact that Dave Portnoy, that whole thing, right? I'm not going to get into that too much on today's podcast, but everything that's been birthed from these last 4 losses is, I do think it sucked a little bit of the fun out of it, because we haven't spent a lot of time talking about the football reasons for why Michigan won. In fact, we spent little to no time talking about the football reasons why they won. Aiden Hutchinson's a very good defensive end. He was a number 2 pick in the NFL draft. He's one of the best young defensive ends in the NFL right now. So the fact that he was good in that game, I mean, that should be the talking point. It's like, man, Ohio State didn't have an answer for Aiden Hutchinson, because nobody in college football had an answer for Aiden Hutchinson. The NFC North is trying to figure out how to deal with Aiden Hutchinson, and he was well on his way to leading the NFL in sacks last season until he got hurt. But that wasn't talked about enough because we were too busy talking about culture stuff. And listen, that's what comes with rivalries, right? That's what makes them more than football games, is that the culture stuff matters. But how often did we talk about the reason why Ohio State lost was just because Aiden Hutchinson was that good? You know, we talk about Colin McCord in that first pick. It was a bad throw. But, I mean, I don't know. You threw it to the number 4 pick in the NFL draft, who was a Heisman Trophy finalist that year. It's just a guy who probably should have been a first-round draft pick in Will Johnson had he not been dealing with a bunch of injuries his last year in college football. Made a better play. It's a bang-bang play at the end of the day, right? I think last year was like a tipping point because it stopped being about football and started being about emotion and culture, and was it too much for Ryan Day, and was the approach right? We stopped talking about football, which I guess leads me into my next round of text here, which is Ryan Day. I didn't even realize I did this. I put Ryan Day right after the shift ones. I don't know if I did that on purpose or I was just grouping them and that's how it worked out. But I'm glad, I'm ready to move on from some of this stuff. Whether it's Connor Stallions or third base comments. Some of this stuff that's just like not even fun. It's just like a bore to deal with. It's just I think there's a lot of people who feel like this has gotten annoying because it's not just about the football stuff anymore. And it's never going to be completely about the football stuff. It's a rivalry. But when the other stuff starts to feel like it's the only thing, just like it can never be all football, but it can also never be all extracurricular activity. Because whenever in rivalries you go way too much one way or the other, if you go way too much football, it stops being fun to talk about. If you go too much extracurricular activity, it just becomes this thing you deal with, and it becomes not fun to talk about. And maybe some of this is because I cover Ohio State, so I'm on the Ohio State side of things. I don't know if Michigan fans are sick of the Dave Portnoy bit. I don't know if they're sick of Connor Stallions popping up on their timeline every so often, right? I don't know if they're sick of these things the same way. But Ohio State fans seem to be sick of it, and there are other Big Ten programs who seem to kind of be sick of some of this stuff too. So it's yeah. Let's move forward. From the 858, this is getting into the Ryan Day stuff now. I hate how every year Day says the following before the game. There's a different look in our players' eyes. There's an edge to them. Our team is physical. And then after he loses to Michigan, it's we're scarred. We will use this as motivation to get better. Rinse and repeat. Why can't he go about learning and call his best game without the need of a Michigan loss? I'm so tired of all the deja vu over and over again. This year, his excuse is ready with the apparent JJ and Tate injuries, masking the bigger question of why he didn't build more depth at wide receiver with no receiver rotations. I have a feeling this slow pace of play and limiting plays may have killed this team's killer instinct as well. After last year's epic failure at home, I am not sure Day is the coach to beat Michigan. He'll win a title, yes, but that team is in his head. A couple other that are maybe more on the, I don't know if negative is the word, but more frustrated at Ryan Day side of things. From the 408, who planned and called the game last year? Seems like we still have 2/3 of the folks from last year in Ryan and Brian. Chip is gone, of course. Is this a good thing or a bad thing to have these same folks around in game planning? And then from Ryan in the 803, hey, Steven, I'm worried that Ryan Day and company are going to fall into the whole team who wins the rushing battle wins the game thing. I know our best two receivers and arguably the best players are injured, but I can't have a repeat of last year. Throw the damn ball. Use the pass to open up the run. And then from the 602, my family is from Toledo and raised me to cheer for the Buckeyes. I'm from Phoenix, Arizona. Believe it or not, I married a girl whose family is from Canton, Michigan. Yes, I'm a walking, talking ESPN commercial. I attended the Win in the Big House in 2013, the Marcus Hall bird flipping game. Last season, I talked my parents into going to the game in Columbus for a sure thing win. Do we think Coach Day will play our game this season and not try to beat the team up north at their game? I skipped Thanksgiving with my own wife and kids for that. I'm sorry that happened to you, man. Oh, that's funny. I'll touch on the JJ and Cornell stuff later in the pod. And that's not. I hope that didn't sound like, oh no, I'm saving you from hearing some bad news. No. I just want to leave that for later on in the pod. I'll say this. I think Ryan Day has been pushing all the right buttons this week. When I was in there Wednesday evening, the vibe was very different than it has been for really any other time I've been in the building the week of the Michigan game. And that includes when they won the game in 2019 and 2018. And we did a video on this, and I was mentioning some of this stuff. So my first year on the beat was 2018. I came in the middle of the season, so I got the last 4 games of the regular season plus the Rose Bowl. And that was when I was introduced to what Michigan prep looks like for Ohio State. And that's Michigan, beat Michigan signs all over the place. You know, the players, the scout team is wearing the winged helmets this week, right? It's almost like propaganda-ish. And then Time for War by LL Cool J is playing on a loop all day, every day, for 7 straight days. It's draining. It's a lot. It's psychological. It's literal psychological warfare. Like, to the upteenth degree, it is psychological warfare. And I found this quote that Urban Meyer gave during a TV interview. I couldn't find out where the TV interview was from because it just kind of came across my TikTok because I'm a millennial and of course I have a TikTok. And here's the quote from Urban Meyer. You can't live your life in fear, but I'm man enough to tell you that I'm horrified of losing that game. And by that game, he's talking about the Ohio State game. But that was Urban Meyer, right? That was the dude whose emotions were always at the highest possible level. That was the dude who was in pain on the sidelines because he was dealing with a cyst in his head. That was a dude who had to leave his coaching job at Florida because he was doing it way too intense and he burned out. That was a guy who burnt out eventually after 7 years at Ohio State. Those are great years, but it was also like high intensity, man. It was, I would assume that it was probably not always a fun thing to work for Urban Meyer, right? I would assume, I know we've all probably seen the Last Dance documentary, the Michael Jordan one. I would assume that working for Urban Meyer, playing for Urban Meyer, has a lot of similarities to what it was like playing with Michael Jordan in the 90s. Or playing for Bill Belichick during those Patriots days. Where, I mean, the results were there, right? They did a lot of winning, but it doesn't mean everybody liked each other all the time. It didn't mean it was fun to come to work all the time. But that worked for Urban Meyer. That is not Ryan Day's personality. And this is not a slight. This is just everybody's different, right? You see that with Michael Jordan and LeBron James a lot. Like, people talk about LeBron James like he's a big kid. He also wins. He's also a very good basketball player. There's not one right way to do this. But when Ryan Day took over in 2019, he had never been a head coach before. He'd barely even been an assistant coach at a level like Ohio State. He's been there for 2 years. And this is the guy Gene Smith chose to replace Urban Meyer at a time when Ohio State was cooking the rivalry. Cooking it. And slowly but surely, Ryan Day has implemented how he wants this program to run, which is good. But I think it took him a little bit longer with the Michigan game. Because if that's your introduction to this game, that's how you have to have respect for it, working for a man who doesn't know how to not be all up in arms and at the most high intense level and make everything high stress, then that's what you're going to imply. That's what you're going to use. But that's not his personality. And obviously it won him the game in 2019. But here's another quote from Ryan Day from after that win. Ever since I took the job, it's been on my mind. I know what this game means to the people of Ohio, to Buckeye Nation, coming off the heels of one of the greatest coaches in the history of college football who went 7-0 here is big shoes to fill. I tried not to worry about that. Our staff tried not to worry about that. We tried to worry about just right now. And anytime I started thinking about what if, I just got right back into my work and just focused on trying to put a good game plan together. To say that there's not stress coming into a game like this would be a lie. There's so much riding on a game like this, and you understand and you feel the weight of everybody involved with it. To win like this right now is a relief. He adopted the high stress. He adopted the intense, everything's got to be serious, everything's uptight mentality. And it was already stressing him out. This is 2019. He's already thinking, what if we lose? He's already thinking that. And they dropped 56. And this is the year after he had just dropped 62 with Dwayne Haskins. And I've been thinking about that quote from Ryan Day for the last month because Ohio State's been practicing on Saturdays, unfortunately, because, they're better than everybody on their schedule. Carter Stallions aside, maybe this was always going to have to happen for Ryan Day to be Ryan Day and approach this game the way he needed to approach it. Because the thing is, he used Urban Meyer's approach and it got him a win. So why would I go away from that? It's winning. It's working. So we're going to keep doing all these things. We're going to keep having the band come in the week of practice. We're going to keep doing senior tackle. Everything that everybody else did before me that worked, I can't not do that even if it's not who I am. And then he started losing the games. But instead of maybe looking inward and seeing what they can change, he took it personal, right? Born on third base. I'll show you, right? Start trying to act tough and do what Michigan was doing. Try to act like Michigan, as if that's the only way to show you're tough. He got more, instead of backing off the high intensity that was never him, he leaned more into the intensity and more into it and more into it and more into it. And then 4 years later, he's got 4 losses and a fan base that's much, much closer to please fire this man than they are, give him another chance. And then he won a national championship doing it his way. And now he's approached this entire season this way. And that's one of the things I noticed the 2 days we were in the building this week. I noticed it from the way Caleb Downs and Sonny Styles and Austin Saravell talked. I noticed it the way he talked, the fact that he was so laid back and chill. And it's not because he doesn't value the rivalry. It's that he can't do it like Urban Meyer did it. He's got to do it like Ryan Day does it. And that's not make this a thing. That's not make it something bigger than what it is. It is a big deal. And it's okay to acknowledge that. But you have to acknowledge it on your terms and the way you want to do things. And put your spin on it. Jim Tressel had success because he put his spin on it. Urban Meyer had success because he put his spin on it. Regardless of the level of the teams they were playing, they put their spin on it and it worked for them. And I think we have to remember, this is Day's 7th year as a head coach at any level. He's learning these things. And I think he has figured it out. I think 4 losses later, he finally gets it. I'm not going to do this the way Urban did it. I'm not going to do it the way Jim did it. I'm definitely trying to not do it the way John Cooper did it. I'm not going to do it the way Woody Hayes did it. Paul Brown did it. or any other coach, I got to do it the way Ryan Day does it and adapt. So what does that mean? They brought the band in during the second bye week. They'll do senior tackle when the season is over, right? Which makes sense. Yeah, you're not doing it during the last game of the regular season, but that's because back then, last game of the regular season was like the last game ever. And then it was maybe one more after this, maybe two more after this. They've played 11 games, and they still might have 6 games left this year, depending on what happens. That's a lot of football left to be played. So they'll handle senior tackle then. They're not bussing up to Ann Arbor anymore. And part of the reason they bust is because I'm pretty sure that the Big Ten used to have a rule that if the drive was less than like 3 hours and 30 minutes or something like that, I don't have the direct rule in front of me, but it was a certain time frame of if you could make the drive in less than X amount of time, make the drive and not waste money taking planes. Everybody has a private jet now at these power schools, so you don't have to necessarily do that anymore. I don't think that rule still exists. So instead of them doing the typical drive up to Ann Arbor, they're going to fly up on Friday and they're going to fly back on Saturday, the same way they would every single other game this year, because that's the routine. We used to only talk to Ryan Day and then get the players right after on the field on Mondays, and then they would shut the entire building down. They changed that this year. The media schedule was no different than the last 11 weeks. Talk to Day on Tuesday, get some players on Wednesday. They go through practice on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, best Fridays in football on Fridays, and then they leave for the game. Players are off on Mondays. Sundays, they come back in, walk through, go through the film. Like the same schedule, same routine. Didn't change a thing. This is the Ryan Day way of doing it. He said it on Wednesday evening. Whatever we were doing the last 4 years isn't working. So to keep doing it is this is not the right way to go. The insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. He would be insane to keep doing what he was doing the last 4 years in this game. Whether that's the X's and O's on the field or it's the operation off of it. But that's what you want, right? You want your coach to adapt. And it sounds like he is... Look what he's done over the last couple of years here, right? He gave up play calling when it was very obvious that it was time to do that. And he didn't take it right back. He gave it to Brian Hartline and has allowed him to figure out how to do this along with a new starting quarterback, right? When he found out what he needed to get with his defensive coordinator and he went and got Jim Knowles. When it was time to move on from that, he went and got Matt Patricia, and that's worked out pretty well. Having the right guys in the right seats. He said that a lot of times. I think the most underrated thing about Ryan Day has been his ability to adapt when something isn't working. Does he go too slow sometimes? Probably, right? He probably shouldn't have brought Kerry Combs back after 2020, but it was also hard to gauge that in the middle of a global pandemic, and you also just reached the national championship game. And I understand Alabama did what they did to them, but they were also missing like 14 guys. So it was hard to, you didn't want to make a brash decision when there wasn't really a full example to give you. And it's unfortunate, but then when he needed to make a decision, he made it right after the Oregon game by taking the play calling away from Kerry Combs. So he's willing to adapt. It's just sometimes he's slower. So it's been good to see him more proactive, because it shouldn't take losses for him to make decisions. And that isn't just for the players. It's for him as well. From Mark Harper in Chicago, more of my thoughts than rants. One, I believe this team can effectively run the ball against a defense with a pulse when it does in Ann Arbor. Sorry, but Purdue, UCLA, and Rutgers won't do it for me. And if they don't have either or both starting wide receivers, well, number two, the surest way to victory here, again, assuming the wide receivers play, is to unleash Arvell Reese. But I feel like he's been quiet of late. Nothing like some of the shows he put on earlier this year. Michigan in particular has won many games over the years because of one great player or one great performance. OSU has not. Reese needs to give Michigan's freshman QB a waking nightmare. And three, OSU cannot come into this game believing, as Andrew suggested, it can strategize based on how many points it needs and win that way. Did you miss last year's game? This is not how this or most rivalry series work. No one thought the two, who had played great defense all year, would combine for 75 points when OSU won 39-36 in 2006 as one of many, many examples. That's a really good point. Rivalries are weird. So there's some like logical things that just stop mattering. It's a football game. They're almost like playoff games are, where it's you might have been something all year, but you just gotta win it the way the game is saying you gotta win it sometimes. So I think sometimes this is what I was saying earlier. You can't be too much of the extracurricular and you can't be too much of the football. You've got to kind of thread the needle and be a little bit of both. When you get too much football, then it kind of breaks your brain when the football thing isn't footballing the way you thought it should football. Couple more day ones before we take a break. Alec from the 631. I'm a recent OSU alum who didn't grow up a Buckeye fan. I grew up in New York and didn't pay attention to college football. Since going to Ohio State in 2019, I've fallen in love with the Buckeyes. But since I've only been a fan since 2019, Ryan Day is the only coach I've known. I have seen only one win against a team up north as a Buckeye fan, but have seen 2 national title appearances and 1 national title win. This feels insane to me. As much as I want to be confident about the game, I can't help but think it'll somehow end in another loss. This team is so unbelievably good. There should be no reason we lose this Saturday, but last year's loss will have me nervous even if they are up multiple scores during the game. I love Ryan Day and everything he's done for this team, and this feels like it should be the year to get it done. Also, yes, being an Ohio State fan is and always will be fun. Hey-o, I'm pulling that question back out after the game on Saturday, so get prepared, Texers, to get that question. Is being an Ohio State fan fun? I know I annoyed you guys with that last year, but wasn't it fun though to like watch the progression of where you were on November 30th versus where you were on January 20th? So why not do it again? And then from the 312, just spoke to 10 old Columbus friends, and all of them said that if Day loses this game to Scum again and repeats a national championship, he will still be fired. Do you agree? No. Ryan Day's not getting fired. He's not. You don't go around firing head coaches who just won national championships, especially when they went back to back. He's the furthest thing away from the hot seat that you could possibly be. Had they not won a national championship last year, could we be having a different conversation right now? Yes, but this is not ESPN, and I don't cover an SEC team, so I don't have to worry about hypotheticals. He is not on the hot seat whatsoever. He's just got to handle this his way, and it seems, based on what I've seen and what I've heard this week, that everybody is handling this the way that it needs to be handled, that works for this era of Ohio State football players and the man in charge. And tomorrow we'll find out whether it works or not. And if it doesn't, back to the drawing board. In the meantime, you can go try to win a ring. Let's take a break. We got 3 more categories left. Thanks for bearing with me. Let's take a break and we'll come back with some more rants here on Buckeye Talk.
This episode is brought to you by Nature's Bounty. Nature's Bounty believes your body is brilliant, naturally designed to thrive, inside and out. For those always looking for new ways to support your health from head to heels, Nature's Bounty has a range of over 400 vitamins and supplements born from 50 years of trust and care. Nature's Bounty. It's in your nature. Visit naturesbounty.com to learn more.
With new, gentler scented Clorox disinfecting wipes, clean finally smells as good as it feels. On everything from lamps to ceiling fans, even on your kid's toy shark. Oh, ouch. Clorox disinfecting wipes, now available in crisp lemon. Find it on Amazon. Clorox, clean feels good.
And we're back here on Buckeye Talk. Stephen Means in the texters, 614-350-3315. It's a 2-week free trial, $3.99 after that. If you want to participate in these rants, if you want to participate when we do Q&As, we're due for a rapid fire pod. We haven't done a rapid fire pod in a long time. We are definitely due for those. So those are coming soon here. 2-week free trial, 614-350-3315. 2-week free trial, $3.99 after that if you want to send rants like this. This is now the tired grouping. I don't know if I'm getting better at the rants pods or not. I hope I am. Let me know. Text me and let me know. You can email me too, or you can go on my Twitter, Stephen_Means. Wherever. Just tell me if you're enjoying these or not. I feel like I'm talking to myself. And I didn't realize I was capable of talking this much until I started doing podcasts. So I don't know. Maybe you like it. Maybe you don't. I hope you do, though, because these are fun. I like doing these. From the 386, I'm so tired of hearing the damn Michigan fans. We need to win. Not even a natty shuts them the hell up. You are correct. But that's what makes rivalries great. You can win a national title and your rival can go, yeah, but you beat us, though. And I get it. It's annoying, and I understand who my audience here is. So it's annoying because you're on this side of things. And it's also annoying because you know you'd be doing the exact same thing if you were on the other edge of the stick. And it's beautiful. I love rivalries. I love college football. I love the emotion that's behind it, which is why when national people who don't get it try to come in here and act like they should tell a fan how they should feel, shut up. No, don't tell them how to feel. Keep being who you are as a fan, man. You guys are what makes this important. Stop telling the people who are responsible for why people care so much about this sport and why there's so much interest and why there's so much money in it, how they should do that. Because if they stop caring, all of a sudden, it ain't that important. It ain't that valuable. Gotta get out of this. You know more than fans. Nobody knows more than anything. We're all just people. From the 937, I hate it when people say it's Michigan week, but they put the X's, red X's, over the M's. A couple of people did that. We aren't celebrating them. It's beat Michigan week. Fair point. That's a solid rant, too, because it's simple, and you don't really think about it until somebody points it out, because it's almost like you know what grinds my gears? It's a pet peeve, and I respect that. For the 937, this isn't a rant, just a request. I'm sick and tired of mid-Michigan teams beating our Buckeyes. I want Day to go into Ann Arbor and steal souls. Crush them by halftime. That's it. And rant. Go Bucks. Short, sweet, and simple. Respect it, 937. From the 859, if we beat them, I won't even be excited, just relieved. I'm tired of even thinking about those cheaters. There's some other words in there that I can't say. I'm just going to be real with you. I can't say those words. Not on these airways. I know there's less rules with podcasts, but I have bosses who listen to this, and I don't think they're okay with us saying those adjectives, 859. So, but I just want you guys to know who are listening, those adjectives are there. I just can't be the one to say them. Get the monkey off our back, Day. From the 330, you asked for it. Very tired of the hypothetical, would you rather beat Michigan or win the Natty? Both options are available in reality. Why not do both? No guarantee you win a Natty. Very difficult to make a run in the college football playoff if you lose to them. I think if they lose to Michigan, it gets significantly more difficult because then they don't get the bye anymore, right? And I do wonder, seeing what Oregon had to go through last year, though, would you rather, because regardless, Oregon was going to play 16 games, just like Ohio State did. And it's almost like would you rather play, when would you rather that 16th game on the schedule be? Would you rather it be right after the regular season ends and then you get 30 days to prepare? Or would you rather your regular season end, get 30 days to prepare, and then you have 4 games to play in essentially like 20 days? And I think last year, and I have a take for this that I'll maybe save for later. I think last year was a bit of an outlier in the number one seed. I get it. It's going to be difficult because you're playing an 8-9 team. But the 8-9 team was Ohio State, who was they were like a fake 8-9 team because of the teams they lost to and when they lost those football games. Ohio State was always better than the seed they have. And I don't know if you're always going to be able to say that every year, that there is a team who as an 8-9 seed, but because they lost their rivalry game that nobody was expecting them to lose, they ended up dropping when really Ohio State should have been like the 5 seed. So I just think Oregon got a bad beat last year. I don't think if Ohio State or Indiana ends up the number 1 seed, they'll get as bad of a beat because whoever the 8-9 seed is not going to be as good of a football team as what Ohio State in 2024 was. So I don't think people need to start looking at it and be scared of having the 1 seed because maybe you get kind of screwed by the bracket. I also do think that they should adopt the NFL policy of reseeding every single round. So if you're the 1 seed, you always play the lowest possible seed left in the bracket on your side of the bracket. From the 360, I swear being an Ohio State fan in 2025 should count as a stress-induced medical condition. How is it that the winningest, most consistently dominant program in the Big Ten is still the punching bag for every national network? I'm not just talking ESPN anymore. Even Fox, the so-called Big Ten flagship, has turned into some kind of maize and blue cheerleading clinic. It's like they legally are required to hire every Michigan alum who's ever held a microphone. Every Saturday, it's the same thing. Thinly veiled shots at Ohio State, a running commentary about pressure and question marks, and entire halftime segments about Michigan. Just does it the right way. Give me a break. Ohio State wins, they nitpick. Ohio State dominance, they downplay. Ohio State breathes. Somehow, it's controversial. Meanwhile, Michigan punch on 4th and 19 on the broadcast, and the broadcast team acts like they just reinvented the sport. And don't get me started on game broadcasts. Fox used to be the home of Big Noon Kickoff. Now it's the home of let's see how many Michigan grads we can cram into one studio. You've got former Wolverines calling the games, analyzing the games, previewing the games, breaking down the games. At this point, I'm shocked they don't have them selling popcorn too. It's impossible to get an unbiased take when everyone with a mic still has their 1997 championship shirt tucked under their suit jacket. It's not disrespect anymore. It's a full-blown hobby for these networks. They need Ohio State to be the villain because deep down they know the conference runs through Columbus. I don't think I could say that any better. I don't think it's on purpose that this is happening. Because with that being said, right, Jake Butt over at Michigan, who I think him and I are the same age. I think we're the same graduating year because I know he went to Pickerington North. I went to DeSales. Let's go Stallions. Ryan Day Jr. should be a 5-star quarterback. Yes, I'm speaking from a place of bias. Yes, pouring purple. Yes, Stallion pride. All those things. I don't care. I don't care if it makes me sound biased. Go Stallions. Not that Stallions. The purple and white ones in Columbus, north side. Off Morris Road. Off Carl Road, more specifically. Jake Butt, though, I think he's one of the best color commentators in the sport right now. And I love that he's been like popping up in different people's podcasts right now because he played at Michigan. He's a Michigan alum, but he doesn't like Michigan alum it to death. Like he acknowledges where he went to school and played at. He was a very good tight end for Michigan in the 2010s, but it doesn't water down his commentary. He does his job. And the whole point of this rant from the 360 is that it doesn't feel like there's a lot of people who do their jobs. And Jimmy wrote about this earlier this week. Jimmy Walker's our rivalry reporter, talked about like, where's Ohio State's guy who's doing this in the media, right? Who's the super biased dude in the media for Ohio State, right? Because Kirk Herbstreit doesn't want to do it and said he wants to complain about the lunatic fringe, which I think has backfired because now the lunatic fringe have kind of galvanized themselves, and it's funny to watch. Joey Galloway doesn't really do it either. Chris Carter's not really on TV anymore. I mean, Bobby Carpenter does it, but I don't know if I would put him in the same category in terms of media personality presence. And that way, right? I know he has his own show that he does with Anthony Schlegel, which I think is very, very good, and he's on the radio in Columbus a lot. But it's not. I don't think that's what people are talking about when they talk about Ohio State people in the media. Tyvis Powell obviously does local media here, and I think he does some stuff with Big Ten as well. But the Ohio State people aren't as prominent, but also they just kind of do their job the way Jake Butt does his job. Josh Perry does his job, right? He went to Ohio State. He was a starter, a captain, I believe, at Ohio State. Very good player at Ohio State. But his coverage and the way he talks about things in the media doesn't lead with, hey, remember, I went to Ohio State. Right? He just does his job. And I think we need more of that. And this is the last thing I'll say on Portnoy because I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about Barstool guys. I don't have a problem with Barstool guys. It's just I'm not their audience. So I tend to not really have an opinion on them. I am intrigued by what happens if Ohio State wins on Saturday. Because if they lose, then the financial value and the viewership value of Portnoy continues to exist, right? Because this whole thing right now is he just goes up there and he just trolls Ryan and Ohio State and throws a little bit and then it's mostly troll Ohio State and then offer a side of troll everybody else in the Big Ten, but mostly troll Ohio State. And that only works as long as Michigan's on the winning side of this rivalry. But if Ohio State wins on Saturday, what's his value in that space? And I'm not saying that because I know the answer. I'm saying that because I'm intrigued by what the answer is. And I'm intrigued to see what happens if Ohio State loses, where you can't just like give him the runway to talk crazy because they lost. But if they win, then you give him all that and it's going to get every viewership in the world. But if they lose, what is that value to have that, right? And the national perspective, I think the ESPN, Fox perspective, Ohio State's just, there's good money in talking about Ohio State. And I'm saying that as a guy who literally funds his life talking about Ohio State. Good, bad, or indifferent, there's good money in talking about Ohio State. And so that means there's going to be people out there who say things about Ohio State that you're going to like. There's going to be people who say things about Ohio State that you're going to love. There's going to be people who talk about Ohio State that you're going to hate, and then people who just kind of annoy you. But it's good money to talk about Ohio State. I don't know if that's ever going to change. I mean, they're up there with like the Lakers and the Yankees in terms of the brand that they are, the Cowboys, right? Who does ESPN talk about every single day? You turn on First Take. It's a LeBron James, it's Shador Sanders, it's something with the Cowboys, and then if they talk baseball, it's the Yankees or Ohtani. Right? So that's just the category Ohio State lives in. So it's I'm not saying you should be cool with it, but that's just the reality of it. I don't think that's ever going away. From the 205, this is going to be different, but if we must lose, please don't let it be the same way. We've lost the exact same way the last 4 years, 23 being slightly different because it ended on an interception. But still, even in the game, Blake Corum broke down safety Sonny Styles, which is a crazy thing to say, safety Sonny Styles. The play after their best offensive lineman went down, that was kind of a, oh, they're not losing this one, are they, moment. 2021, Hassan Haskins had big runs to end the game. 2022, Donovan Edwards had big runs to end the game. 2024, Khalil Mullins' 13-yard game-ending first down. If the universe dictates we simply must lose this game, can it at least be because Bryce Underwood turned into Cam Newton? That's fair. That's fair. Yeah, that's fair. If you're going to lose, at least lose differently. And stop painting the same story. I respect that. That's why I put it in the tired category. Because it's like, I'm tired of losing, but I'm more tired that we keep losing like this and not doing anything about it. I like that. That was a great rant. On to the stressed. From the 314, ever since the end of the Rutgers game, this game has been on my mind. Why, as a fan, am I losing sleep over this game? This week is full of emotions from Thanksgiving to the game. Oh, and also my first child is due the day of the game. I am very excited for it all, but I can't get out of my head Ryan Day record versus Michigan, or the fact that it might be cold and snowing, and we don't know how Mr. California Julian Sand will react in that environment that cold and snowy. And oh yeah, we may be without our starting wide receivers. First of all, congrats on the new child. Congrats. I hope that's stress-free and everything goes great. That's a lot to be stressing about. And I empathize with you. I can't help you with the child part. I don't have any kids, and I don't have any on the way. So all I can do is wish the best for your stress levels, because that's a lot to deal with, man. You're trying to bring new life into the world while also trying to, not lose your sanity about a college football game. I love college football. From Justin in the 513, even though OSU should dominate on Saturday, I am nervous as ever about the game. I thought that there was no chance they'd lose last year, and they did. I'm also worried about the recent run game success and wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2 injuries. I hope this doesn't get Day in the mindset of having to win the run game and play tight. On top of that, the offensive line did not look that good in pass protection against Rutgers, seemingly going the wrong way heading into the most important game of the season. I don't think I'm worried about the defense, just the offense. Either way, F Blue and go Bucks. From a 210, you can choose to believe me or not. I tweeted out on March 8th, 2025 at 9:15 a.m. about a dream I had that night. The dream was that we lost the game again to Michigan 10-9. And I vividly remember a team up north 50-yard rushing TD. So help me God if that becomes a reality. You guys are stressed, man. From the 951, I have mixed feelings about this team now. I was a lot more confident until the last 2 games. Makes me wonder if this team has what it takes to beat the team up north. Will it take a loss to actually light a fire under them again? From the 614, I am a 38-year-old, and for most of my life, I didn't remember what it was like losing to Michigan. But raising my children, I wanted to keep that hate alive. Every year when we beat Michigan, I would take my kids out to buy a toy. Now at 10 and 11, they barely remember what it was like to win against them. Those cheating, a word I can't say, stole the memories I would have had with my kids. For that, I hope the whole state of Michigan has an awful Christmas. Wow. I'm trying to visualize this because there was a time in their lives where it's like, oh, it's Thanksgiving, we're going to get a toy. And at some point it became, oh, it's the weekend where we don't get the toy anymore. I want to have a conversation with you about this because I almost want to see, how did you sell that as they got older? Did you tell them that the reason why they're not getting the toy is because we're losing to Michigan now? Or did you have to do the parent thing where you just kind of, oh, you're too old for that, you need to wait till Christmas type of thing? I want to know how you handled that. 614-350-3315. Because that's intriguing, right? Because they're at an age where you could have just been doing it. And they're like, oh, man, mom, dad just gives me a toy. I just get a toy every single year around Thanksgiving. And then one day you stop doing it. And I wonder if they've complained to their friends about it. Like, I don't know, man. They just stopped getting me the toy. I was looking forward to that toy. I started putting the list together. I checked it twice. I wasn't naughty. I was very nice. I thought we were getting toys on Thanksgiving, and apparently we don't do that anymore. I'm wondering why. I'm wondering how that conversation goes. Because in the process of you telling them what happened, you have just created the very thing you wanted to create, and that's keeping that hate alive. Because if they know the reason they're not getting the toy is because Michigan keeps winning this game, you're robbing them of something tangible. Literally, they're literally losing something tangible in their lives, and I think they will have had the same hatred as you. So I almost like this. I like this. This is how you parent your children in the sports fandom. It's genius. Man, I'm just taking notes for when I have kids because I think I'm going to do the same thing. Okay, I wanted to wait to the stress to talk about Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate. Because we got one other rant that was Carnell Tate JJ adjacent. And it was from the 317. Has Tate played his last snap at OSU? No, I do not think Carnell Tate has played his last snap at OSU. I do not think the last time we see Carnell Tate was a 150-plus game against Penn State. That was nearly a month ago now. I do not think that. Here's the deal. The availability report comes out at 10 a.m. Eastern time on Saturday. That is a Big Ten thing that they have to be out 2 hours before the game. So that is when the general public will find out. Could sprinkles start coming out over the next 24 hours, next 12 hours, I guess, next day leading up to the game, next 36 hours? I'm not good at math. Is it 36 hours or something? Yeah, whatever it is. Sure, sprinkles to start coming out. Here's what I'll give. I'll give my read on it. I am not worried about Jeremiah Smith playing in this football game. I'm pretty confident JJ's going to play. 99.9% sure JJ is going to play. Carnell, that one seems like it's a little more tricky. So I don't know if any of us has walked away from a conversation with somebody or heard anything where it was like 100% he's not playing, 100% he is playing, because it maybe is a little bit more tricky in that aspect of things. If I have to mark it down right now, if you're forcing me to do so, then I'll say yes, I think Carnell Tate also plays on Saturday. But with his, I would be shocked if JJ doesn't play on Saturday. I don't know if I would be shocked either way with Carnell Tate. I think that's the most honest and legitimate way I can talk about what is happening with Carnell Tate and Jeremiah Smith right now. Last break, and then we'll close out some things here on Buckeye Talk.
If we knew more about our sleep, what would we do differently? Would we go to bed at a consistent time or take steps to reduce interruptions to our sleep? With the all-new Sleep Score, Apple Watch measures your bedtime consistency, interruptions, and sleep duration. Then, every morning it combines these factors into an easy-to-understand score from 1 to 100. So you'll know how to take the quality of your sleep from good to excellent. Introducing the new Sleep Score on Apple Watch. iPhone 11 or later required.
Oh, Hilton stay, your beds are soft and cozy. No lumpy couch, no stiff futon, no shower line at crack of dawn. Oh, Hilton stay.
When you want holiday comfort you can count on, it matters where you stay. Enjoy comfortable rooms and friendly service when you stay with Hilton instead. Save up to 25% this season when you book with Hilton. Hilton for the stay. Terms apply.
Rants Pod here on Buckeye Talk. It's Stephen Means and the texter 614-350-3315. Last few texts that are just more rah-rah. I wanted to end with rah-rah. I didn't, because I know this was, I kind of took us on a wave of emotions here between, stressed, tired, wired, excited, mad, happy. Because that's rivalry week, man. You go through all these different emotions. From the 513, Steven, my rant is they better win this game. They are more talented and better coached, in my opinion. My big issue is injuries better not derail this game. I so much want them to put up 100. I have been watching since the 70s, and this is a game they have to win. I am also one of those fans that want them to win the Natty more than this game, even though I really want them to win on Saturday. From the 330, very quick rant or statement, I guess. I want us to absolutely humiliate them. Should have done it last year. If Tatum Smith play and are at least 75% healthy, I want to see a 50 burger on that scoreboard. When the game is out of reach in the third, get Keenholz in there with the threes and sling the rock around. It's been far too long and a long time coming. Humiliate them. From Peter in Northwest New Jersey. Hi, Steven. Rants in the game. I really want and think Ohio State and Ryan Day want to blow out Michigan like they did in 2019. I think they want to score as many points as possible. I really believe this is the year they go out and do it. Also, I think Underwood is going to get sacked and pressured so much that he throws at least 2 interceptions. I didn't want players to get injured, but I really want the defense to nail blue jerseys extra hard this week and really make them feel it on Sundays. This is 4 years of hate built up. Time to bring it. Go Bucks. From Mike in the 717, I'm a juice kind of guy. I think it's always important to switch it up before a game and get fire under the guys. I loved having goosebumps and ready to take someone's soul like Alvin Mack and Steve Latimer. The program, best football movie ever. What I mean is, I think Ryan Day should do his own kind of speeches, yes. But I also think it would be very beneficial if Day brought in old juice players who have played in this Michigan game and have smashed them or beat them and give that crazy fire under these guys. I'm tired of losing to Michigan. Yes, Natties are cool, but let's be real. This is more personal, and I won't listen to Michigan for another year hammering us. Also, get that flag ready. I want Caden Curry to go bury that flag at the 50-yard line, throw the kitchen sink at this you-know-what. I didn't even think about Caden Curry. That's a good one. That's a good nomination there. I think those guys exist in the building. That's what's so interesting. Right? Like Brian Hartline never lost to Michigan. James Laurinaitis never lost to Michigan. I don't think CJ Barnett ever lost to Michigan. I can't remember if CJ was there in 2011 or not. If he was, then he's lost to Michigan. But not in like normal circumstances has he lost to Michigan. Right? So there's plenty of guys in that building who had never lost to Michigan, right? Like Mark Pantoni, he's not a coach, but he's in the building. He was 7-0. He won his first 8, actually. Larry Johnson didn't start losing to Michigan until 2021, right? There's plenty of guys, and then players are always welcome back in the building, and there's always people in the building. So I don't think the juice is lacking. I do want to use this rant to talk about someone who I don't think most of us have even really thought about in all of this. And that's Tim Walton. Right now, he's Ohio State's cornerback coach. But he was also once a DB at Ohio State for 4 years, playing for John Cooper. He played for John Cooper from 1990 to 1993. During his career, and this is according to Ohio State, he had 159 tackles, 10 interceptions, and 11 pass breakups while playing for teams who played in the Liberty, Hall of Fame, Citrus, and Holiday Bowls. And he had 25 starts in 41 games. He's a pretty good corner. Look at you, Walt. I didn't even know that. Here's his Michigan games. In 1990, in Columbus, they lost 16-13. In 1991, in Ann Arbor, they lost 31-3. In 1992, in Columbus, they tied 13-13. And in 1993, in Ann Arbor, they got shut out 28-0. And then he graduated in the spring of 1994. Later that year, that fall, Ohio State won the Ohio State-Michigan game for the first time in 6 years. So as soon as he left, they finally got a win. And I've been thinking about that because I think it's easy to wonder, man, what's going on in Brian Hartline's head? This is not the experience he had as an Ohio State player when he played Michigan. So I don't think he can't empathize with Emeka Egbuka. It's not his experience. James Laurinaitis can't empathize with, Sonny Styles and Cody Simon. It's not his experience. But Tim Walton can empathize with everybody in his room, with every player on this roster, because he's just like them. He has never beaten Michigan. And I know, I'm sure, I've had conversations with him, so I know it's not the front of his mind every single day. But I do wonder, how he's handled some of these Michigan losses when he was 0-4 as a player. And now he's 0-3 as a coach. He's still looking for his first pair of gold pants. And that team has been a living nightmare for him on both ends of the spectrum, player and coach. And we don't typically talk to the assistants during the year, so I've never had a chance to have this conversation with him. But I do wonder that, you have a chance to potentially get your first win in 8 tries at it. I don't know if that exists. I don't know if there's anybody else who's like Tim Walton, where I'm 7 games in as both a player and a coach, and I still can't beat this team. And I wonder if they win on Saturday or lose. I'm almost thinking man, what's Tim Walton thinking right now? Because he's never beaten them. He's the only guy who can empathize fully. Because Ryan Day's got a win over Michigan, right? Larry Johnson's got wins over Michigan. Tim Walton is the only guy who has a long-term, long-standing history with Michigan. Because even Keenan Bailey, right? He was a graduate assistant for some years before he became the tight ends coach here. So he's been a part of some Ohio State wins over Michigan. Tim Walton is the only guy who has had a long-standing history with Ohio State who has never been a part of a win against Michigan. And I'm wondering if his players know that and are hyper aware of that. I'm wondering if Davis and Igbinosun and Jermaine Matthews and Devin Sanchez and Aaron Scott and Caleb Downs and Jalen McClain and Malik Hartford, if all these guys are Bryce West are hyper aware of the fact that Tim Walton has never won this game before. And if there's an extra little motivation to get him one. Not just for themselves, but for their head coach who has been dealing with this first as a player in the 90s and now as a head coach in the 2020s. Last rant. Actually, 3 more rants. Anthony from Findlay, Ohio. I've been waiting for this. I saw this question on Twitter recently, and I wanted to get your guys' opinion on it. Hypothetically speaking, if Ohio State wins on Saturday and they decide to plant the flag, who should be the one to plant it? My pick is either hometown hero Luke Montgomery or senior captain in the block hole recipient Sonny Styles. For clarification, I don't think they would actually do it. I just think it's a fun question. Honorable mention, Jermaine Matthews. Go listen to the live show. We got into some answers there. But great minds think alike, Anthony. From the 6, 7, 8, how much do you think the weather will impact Ohio State if they try to air it out? I don't think it's going to be so bad that they can't throw the football. I don't think the weather was that bad in 2021 that they couldn't throw the football. It was just they didn't play well and they got bullied. I don't think C.J. Stroud had some throws in that game, if you remember. Like he was fine. Throwing the ball wasn't the issue, and I don't think the weather is going to be so bad that they can't throw the football. I get it. Julian Sand is from Southern California, and he has thrown one ball in severely cold weather, and it was in garbage time of a college football playoff game last year, and it literally hit the dirt, but it was 7 degrees. It's not going to be 7 degrees on Saturday. From Gabe in the 513, and I'll end here. This team has a chance to go down as the greatest team in the history of Ohio State football. The 2002 team was great, but they're more known as a team that scraped their way to a national title and upset a Miami dynasty to win it. The 2014 team was also great and had some incredible players, but they got destroyed by Virginia Tech that year. The 2019 team was close, but they fell short in the Fiesta Bowl. Last year's team won the championship, but they didn't beat Michigan or win the Big Ten. This team has a chance to be the first 16-0 team in college football history with one of the greatest defenses in college football and a roster filled with future NFL stars. They could have the Heisman Trophy winner. However, to be called the greatest team in Ohio State history, you have to beat Michigan. It just is what it is. The standard is the standard at this program. You cannot be named the greatest team in program history without winning this game. You win, then you go win the Big Ten title, and then you win another natty. Then the greatest team title is yours. Step 1 starts this Saturday. Beat Michigan. Yes, that is like the number one thing I'm thinking about coming off of this game. If Ohio State handles this business, if they lose it, then we're having a different conversation. But if they win tomorrow, I don't think it's quite hit people what it means if they beat Michigan on Saturday. And it's because they haven't won this game in 4 years. So it's hard to think further than Saturday when you haven't won this game in 6 years, right? It's a hard thing to do. Hey, you can do this, that, and the third. It's like, whoa. It's almost like cooking. It's like baking a pound cake, right? And you're so excited about, this is going to be the greatest pound cake in the history of pound cakes. And then you look down and you go, can you just crack an egg first? We haven't even pulled the eggs out of the carton yet. Let's breathe. And it's one step at a time here. But that concept of being, like, Clemson was the first ever 15-0 team in 2018. We've had the first 12-0 team, right? We've had all these firsts throughout history, and I've talked about some of these on this pod over the last couple of months. But I think this might be like the greatest run we've ever seen if they can win on Saturday. And if they win on Saturday, the thing I've been thinking about writing is this idea of Michigan. That 2014 loss was supposed to break Ryan Day. It was supposed to be the end of him. That was it. He lost that game. He was lower. This program had not been anywhere near as low as it was for the 20 days, 30 days between that loss to Michigan and when it took the field against Tennessee. I don't think this program had been lower. That was a very dark place that everybody was at, right? And they pulled themselves out of it, and they won a national championship for it. But think about where we were 365 days ago. So to go from that to a playoff run of that magnitude, where it was like no doubt who was the better team in every one of those games. Even the Texas game, where they didn't necessarily play clean on offense, there was no doubt who the better team was. And then the run through the regular season, these last 11 games like they have, where they got through Texas, and then it just felt like they were tinkering every single Saturday, and nobody was good enough to say anything about it. And I get it. Like, that goes back to earlier rants of, man, Ohio State's dominating everybody, and nobody wants to talk about it. It's people want to go, oh, the schedule was soft. Is the schedule soft, or did they just play Ohio State? So Ohio State did a really good job of making some teams look worse than they actually were. I thought Washington was actually a really good football team. Texas is a decent football team. I think Minnesota is a decent football team. Illinois, decent football team. Penn State, that got weird. So it is what it is. I think Rutgers, their defense is horrid, but I think their offense is pretty decent. They played some decent football teams. Did they play a bunch of teams in the top 10? No, but nobody played a bunch of teams in the top 10 just because I'm not getting into an SEC rant today, but the point I'm making is they have looked bar none better than everybody else in college football right now. So if they can get through this, and then we get through the end of the year, and if they go on another run where they beat Michigan, they beat Indiana potentially next week in the Big Ten championship game, and then they run off 3 straight playoff games, and they win a national title, do y'all understand what we're talking about here? The only teams who have repeat as like uncontested national champions since the turn of the millennium have been Georgia in 21-22, and then Alabama did it in, I believe, 2011 and 2012. That's the list. But one of them did it in the BCS era, and the other one did it in the 14 playoff era. So to go from a 13-10 embarrassing football loss, where we are now questioning whether a man should still have his job, to we now live in this world of Ohio State will have won 20 straight games, potentially, by the end of this year, while beating their rival. And they did it with a brand spanking new roster. You can name on 2 hands how many guys from this year's roster were starter impact players from last year. I'm going to do it. Caleb Downs, Sonny Styles, Davis Igbinosun, Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate, Tegra Shabola. Day one starters from when this all started in 2024 against Akron. Those are the guys who were day one starters that day. And Austin Sareveld stepped in for the first 2 games because Donovan Jackson was hurt, but he was not a day one starter. He stepped in as a reserve guy. But 6 guys from last year's roster returned this year as starters. That's what is potentially out there for Ohio State if they get through this. I don't think we've ever seen anything like this before. Now, they got to get through Michigan, but that's what it sets up. If they can get over this proverbial hurdle, this mind thing with Michigan, and in this losing streak on Saturday, the thing that sets up is a level of history that I don't think anybody would have thought was even possible 12 months ago. So here we are. Ohio State, Michigan on Saturday at noon in the Big House. Michigan's won the last 4. Ohio State hasn't won since 2019. If Ohio State wins, they punch their ticket to the Big Ten championship game, where, assuming Indiana beats Purdue tonight, as you're listening to this pod, Purdue and Indiana play on Friday night. Then it'll be Ohio State and Indiana for the number 1 seed in the college football playoff, and potentially Julian Sand versus Fernando Mendoza for the Heisman Trophy. If they lose, they don't go to the Big Ten championship game. They open the door for Michigan to get to the Big Ten championship game, and Michigan, for all intents and purposes, has already punched their ticket to the college football playoff. So both sides have some things on the line. I think Michigan has a little bit more in terms of tangible, but I think Ohio State has a little bit more when it comes to the cultural. It's enough talking. We've talked, we've listened, we've asked questions, we've previewed, and now we've ranted. Hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving. 614-350-3315, 2-week free trial, $3.99 after that. The end game has arrived, and the game will be here in 36 hours. I'm Steven Means. Talk to you guys after the game.
Hey, Ryan Reynolds here. Wishing you a very happy half-off holiday because right now Mint Mobile is offering you the gift of 50% off unlimited. To be clear, that's half price, not half the service. And Mint is still premium unlimited wireless for a great price. So that means a half day. Yeah? Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.